Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of DevOps Diaries. Today I am joined by Conlan Morton-O'Rourke. Conlan, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Jack, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me on what is still a very pleasant weather for mid-September here in Cambridge, UK. Starting to get to that change.
I've heard about that weather over there, so.
Yeah, not too bad, and long may it continue. Conlan, so great to have you on the conversation today and be able to have the chance to sit down and chat to you a little bit. You're one of GearSet's DevOps leaders, which is awesome for us to get your experience and learn from you and your journey. And for the listeners, give us a little bit of background about you and kind of what you do and what your ethos around DevOps is.
Yeah, so I work at Amazon. I'm transitioning my role to technical program manager, from kind of a application engineer slash kind of designated last November, December into like the engineering owner for our application. It's effectively kind of a project management application for all of Amazon's new launch retrofits, lease projects. So projects related to launch and retrofits of fulfillment centers, right? Amazon's very large worldwide fulfillment center. So there's, at any given time, there's thousands of projects going on. And so, with many teams and users. So we right now have about 4,500 users of our application, and it does run on the Salesforce. It runs on a Salesforce experience site, actually. So it's a kind of a custom coded solution, and it's also a SOX compliant system, so Sarbanes-Oxley. So there's a lot involved in just kind of overseeing and managing that. And then when, we make enhancements and improvements to it, there's just a lot going on. So kind of overseeing a lot of work streams, new projects, maintenance work, security improvements, right, that always come up. So just lots and lots of things to do every single day.
Lots of plates.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of plates. Tell me, what's it like managing a compliance system like Sarbanes-Oxley, along with also maintaining an application for, like you say, thousands of users, and the importance. I mean, we all get Amazon packages, right? We all get them, and if it wasn't for those fulfillment centers, we wouldn't get them. What's that kind of like? How do those worlds mesh together?
And how does a project management application get put under Sarbanes-Oxley certification? That one I didn't know for a long time. It was only this last year when I started getting more involved in that kind of work stream, and taking some ownership of some of the SOX controls that are applied to our system, that I really started to understand. Essentially, we track like when a building is going to launch, when it's going to become operationally ready. And then we also track, I'm spacing on it. There's kind of one other key kind of milestone, but there's certain milestones that accounting actually tracks too, right? Because then those things impact Amazon's financial statements. So they rely on that data and that information from our users to ensure that they're depreciating buildings and starting the depreciation process, and so kind of having like SOX compliance, SOX certification is it's a double-edged sword, and I've been working very closely with our partners in financial regulatory compliance and in the finance team. And one of my partners in the finance team kind of put it very well. He said, so we have an internal team, right? That's the financial regulatory compliance team. And then they come in and they partner with us and they work with us to make sure that our controls are proper and appropriate so that when we do get audited by external auditors, that audit goes successfully. Um, so he was working, and he also does a lot of that work. And he was saying, the auditors, kind of the regulators, they can be a real pain in the butt. Just because give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, and they'll really dig deep of like, but as a result of that, and we were modifying some of our controls to build some automation in, right? So it was automating a process, but as a result of that, then we had to change some of the controls that we had. And it was months and months of back and forth of just like the wording around what exactly our process is and what it's doing to make sure it's crystal clear. And so it's kind of that back and forth. But as a result of that, all that questions and all that scrutiny really makes sure that our system is really well designed in a sense, right? So like making sure that the data quality is like we have really strong validations, we have the appropriate people who have access to the right data to be able to edit data, um, and and then we have mechanisms in place to like ensure data quality is high. And so that's kind of what I say is, and then those are the things where, and it's a conversation we have like finance of like, well, does the business understand like why this stuff is important? Because it can kind of be seen as red tape, like just to get access to our system, someone has to submit a ticket, right? And then we have to onboard them and we have to get manager approval for them to be able to come into the system. And so that is usually viewed by our users as onerous and and kind of a pain. Why do I have to get my manager to approve like me to be able to go in and edit dates in a system, right? So like they don't always quite see that, but uh, the really big benefit to the business is, well, like in doing all these things and continually improving, um, and putting in more mechanisms and more controls, is that it really improves the data quality. And like nowadays AI is so big, data quality is a huge topic for us, because if our data quality is not good, the AI outputs are going to be meaningless, right? And so there's the like compliance kind of finance side, right, where you think of it more as like administrative or yeah for compliance reasons, but like those two work hand in hand, where the business really benefits from all the like controls and the like the questions and the scrutiny and like the refining of the process and improvements in the processes, that come from the compliance side actually improve the business side, because it improves the data quality, it provides better outputs, and then it like really enables our system to be uh, like capable of being plugged into LLMs and AI and stuff, and being able to then output good data to the business users. So
Yeah, this it's so interesting. Um, I guess to think about it, and to your point, these things coexist, and as long as they're making each other better, more productive, and then everybody's working in a nice harmonious way, then win-win for everybody, despite the onerous perception of of users sometimes. At the end of the day, we're not always going to please all the users all the time. And you to your point about data and then AI, had somebody on the podcast recently, Alice Jessup, who was talking about. I asked her, where do you start with your data when it comes to looking at implementing AI? And she was like, classification and cleanliness like is the first place. And if you already have a system that's designed in that way, then you're kind of steps ahead. With all this in mind, so if you think about a lot of things that you're talking about, like identifying and scrutinizing processes and looking for rooms to improvement, is absolutely what I think of when I think about DevOps. Scrutinize processes. What can we improve? What can we fix? Where can we enable automation? Again, to your point earlier about introducing that where appropriate. How important is DevOps and having a well-oiled Salesforce delivery process and practices to being able to deliver for the business in the way that you're looking to do so?
Yeah, I think it's just about like um, speed to delivery, right? I think that's why we implemented our pipeline, CI/CD pipeline through DevOps through GearSet. Um, using change sets before was, and I was like doing a lot of the hands-on work, and our product managers, just like it's kind of an abstract concept to them. Why do I care? Like it's not changing the product, it's not changing the output at all. So it was is harder sell for them. Um, but ultimately the sell was, we went through and did an analysis of like how much time are we spending literally packaging these change sets and moving them from one environment to another. And we have a very so we have our historically we had our developer sandbox where everyone worked, a team of 10 to 15 developers and admins kind of working out of a single partial developer sandbox, and then packaging everything up into change sets and moving it to SIT, systems integration, right? And then running QA testing there, and then doing the same thing, repackaging everything, right? Because change sets, you can't like clone them. uh,
Yeah.
Strangely, I don't know why Salesforce never implemented that, but so then you have to literally rebuild the thing and put it over into our next environment, which is UAT, user acceptance testing, right? Where users can come in and play around with it. Um, and then packaging it up again and moving it into production. And so the amount of time that, I mean, we basically had like two full-time kind of admins, maybe one to two full-time people just doing that, because the number of changes we would push every single day through the environments. And I mean, it's like, not fun work. It's tedious.
Yeah,
And then it's
with the best will in the world, that's not the most exciting thing for admins to be doing, is it?
no, no, no. Yeah, I mean, it's not like helping their career at all or anything. Just doing this rote, uh,
Yeah.
you know, rinse and repeat work over and over and over. And then because it's manual, right? It's like things would get missed, and that's how it would impact the business is, um, and permissions. Like permissions always got missed. Like just I don't know the nature of permissions in general, right? I think it's again it's that double-edged sword. Like it's Salesforce permissions are highly complex and there's so many different layers, which gives you lots and lots of granularity and lots of controls to like and knobs and levers to kind of turn as to who can do what in your system. But then because of the level of complexity, it's like things get missed. And so um you know put it into production and then someone would report an issue and it was, oh, we just missed a permission coming over, or um and so, or we just missed a component or something. And then you have to get the developer involved to like troubleshoot why the defect is in this environment. And the root cause is, oh, because the person moving the change set literally just forgot to, what going through the checklist, forgot to put that one on that one change set and move it over. And so it's, um, yeah, so basically just being able to automate that, right? Like I always thought of it as, like if it's an assembly line and you're uh literally rebuilding the product at every station along your assembly line, uh that's like from a quality assurance perspective, that's like super error prone versus, assemble the product, the package once and then like have robotic arms move it from one station to the next. That's the equivalent of like, of course, that automation and that, um the quality assurance is going to go up by so much more. So, we estimated, and it was like, you know, between the time to build and move these change sets, and then the time that it would also take away developers uh, from like doing
Developing.
their work, right? And how they're troubleshooting like quote unquote defects in another environment where something just got missed. Um, like it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, right? And so So it was very, the ROI was pretty simple and easy. And then, um, we got to a point where like, and GearSet has the capability to roll things back. I think we've done in 2 years that we've had to do like two rollbacks of a production release, where, and I did one recently. And so we opened what we call a correction of error. And it was like the root cause analysis was like misalignment on requirements. So it was nothing to do with the like, you know, like kind of engineering development perspective. It was literally just like mismatched alignment and expectations as to it was creating some fields, marking them as required when they all shouldn't have been marked as required, kind of on the object level because the end users did not have the information to be able to enter as soon as the record was created for all 12 fields. Right. And so then that kind of went back to, okay, like what happened here from our requirements gathering, our UX, perspective. And, uh, but yeah, I mean, that being said, it's like we kind of virtually eliminated those, like putting defects into production because we missed something along the way. So that's huge. And then again, it's like our users are never going to come thank us for that, right? But they will stop being frustrated with us. So that's a win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. That's that's a funny way of like measuring success. Is just like they don't. We're not looking for a thank you, but less complaints is also good. Less frustration is also good. That rebuilding of change sets, and it's like stripping things down and rebuilding them reminds me. The analogy that popped into my head was in the Fast and Furious series of movies, number 5. The police are trying to track them, and they're stripping down a car, and then they have to rebuild it, and the one thing that they're missing is like a computer chip in the computer. And so that's like Salesforce. So when you're putting things together, so easy to miss just this one little thing that completely changes the complexity and the information that's coming out of the system. So I get that for sure. And up like with change sets, I guess they're, unless somebody from Salesforce development's team is listening to this and is going to look at creating a clone change sets thing, then I don't think there's much people can do about it, because it's all DevOps center now and encouraging people to shift that way too. It must be great for compliance too, because you think about auditing changes and going back through a bunch of change sets, and then the bits that were missing and weren't missing. That's can be a pain in the backside as well if you're looking at like SOX compliance versus having a system like GearSet or the others out there that give you some auditability or audit trail into what you've done. That must make your compliance people's lives a little bit easier too.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is part of our so we also have to have kind of control, like change management control, right, over and to probably a lot of other more mature systems and and owners of those mature systems, this is no surprise, but one thing that we didn't have was we didn't have version control, right? We didn't have a version control like repo. Um, and so, yeah, going back and identifying, oh, hey, this component, this metadata changed on this date by this person who was honestly probably just the release manager deploying, right? Was like very, very difficult, like if not impossible sometimes to trace that back, especially if it had been months, years. Hey, why did this thing change? You go back to that person, they say, I don't know, I just deployed it. I just released it into production, right? Like I didn't actually work on it. Okay, then who worked on it? And trying to figure that out is, yeah, I mean, extremely difficult. But so part of putting in place and that was the biggest change management for our team, especially kind of coming from a Salesforce environment. Like a lot of our developers were like, oh yeah, I've used GitHub, but it was like in college on a project or something like that, especially, so, kind of familiarity with it, but also like not, and now I think the whole team is much, much more well-versed and very, using it very well. But, there's just pull requests, and there's a lot of peculiarities or nuances, I should say, to having a version control system. But then like I can ask a developer, hey, why did this component change? And within like minutes, I can get a response. Here's the ticket, right? Like here's um, the pull request that was I want to say like or the yeah once it's actually merged, like here's the commit, right, basically into the main line, and then we can trace it back to like here's the ticket. And so it's that makes it incredibly easy and for every single thing. And then yeah, so from a traceability perspective, that was a total game changer, like absolutely. And then where that also helps is, I mean, like the audits, they don't necessarily dig in too much to like any particular change that's going into our environment, but from like when we need to root cause analysis things, right? When we have defects and we need to root cause analysis, like, hey, why did this change? What was the like rationale behind it? What was that? Where's that? Give me the ticket. To be able to do that very, very quickly is like helps tremendously in terms of root cause analysis.
Yeah, there's something else that I wanted to jump back into because you mentioned correction of errors, and those root cause analysis kind of meetings or reviews that you do when something goes wrong. Because I brought when we've had previous conversations, I mentioned centers of excellence to you and said COE, and you went, "Oh yeah, correction of errors," and I was just like, "Wait a second, correction of errors! I want to know more about this." So tell me a little bit about the correction of errors meetings and what what impact do you think it has on the teams generally and for people at Amazon working through things and uh, on that path of continual improvement, I guess, because when I think about DevOps, I'm always thinking about look at one thing, fix one thing, move on to the next, and continue it. Like have that infinity loop working all the time. So yeah, correction of errors means really interesting concept for me.
Yeah, it's and our team did start adopting, questions of like why were you doing it? I mean, we would kind of write up a quip, like background, what happened, like root cause analysis and stuff. And then recently we just started adopting, Amazon has a COE tool, like it's a dedicated software tool, where it's got inputs that you have to put in, and then you have to put action items in there with due dates. And if you don't complete the action item, it's going to escalate very quickly to, high up the chain. And so there's like, it's again, it's like a double-edged sword where, um, it's also very, very intensive. Like the level of there's a portion of it where it's called the 5 whys, and you just dig into like why did that happen? Okay, why did that happen? Okay, why did that happen? Okay, why did that happen? And so it becomes very and the one that we just did, I had the BA author it because it was kind of a misalignment on requirements. And I mean, he was really good. And then we actually had to roll him off the project just due to a change in like funding. And so that was like his very last project as he was leaving. And I, very much explained like I completely you're not rolling off because of this, right? And so also reframing the mindset of like, um, oh, this is a really scary bad thing, and if we don't do everything right, the like vice president is gonna like notified by email and stuff. And so there is a lot of like kind of fear that goes around into it, and it just has to be very, very thorough. But then the benefit is, and then we held a call, and we invited like especially one of our key stakeholders, like from the PMO office, uh, program management office, who kind of partners with us around standards and things like that. And she actually had a lot of really good input. And then we invited like one of our software development managers. And he made a comment that, so it was a really good, like productive conversation amongst the whole team as to like, okay, why did this happen? How do we improve it? And we came away with so many different action items that we could implement into our process. And so now I actually have to go document those and actually like so again, it adds some like paperwork and things like that. But I do think it's really designed to improve your process. And so what the software development manager said was, and he said, I've heard from other teams at Amazon, like they track the number of COEs as a metric, as like a key performance indicator. and they view it as like the more COEs you have, the better it is, right? And you would think like, well, the more you have, the more errors. But he was kind of saying, but that's, everyone has errors. It's about being willing to be honest and transparent and have the team really go look into what happened every single time to have um, continuous quality improvement. So you're always improving your processes. And that I was like, yeah, that's a reframe, I think, for our team of, again, from this being a very scary, onerous, time intensive process to, where like a super high manager could get alerted or something because you forgot to like fill this form out by a certain date, to something that's like, we're constantly improving our processes. And so it's a very formalized mechanism. And I want to say that we were always doing that through our sprint reviews and sprint retros and things like that, where we document action items and improve our processes. Um, but that one was really good. About usually sprint retros for us is more about like improving the sprint itself, kind of the mechanics of the sprint. Um, like uh I don't know, some like, but whereas this was more like, what does our entire software development lifecycle look like? That one in particular, like how did we miss on these requirements so much that we had a whole group of users who like, they were in Europe too, so 3 a.m. they're pinging us like, hey, I can't enter any more information because I have 12 new required fields and I can't fill out all 12 fields, or I can, and I'm going to put in junk data just so I can move on through my process. And so then that became like, okay, how do we revisit our whole software development process? So I think it's ultimately, and I'm starting to see the team, change around that stuff. But it's like, can kind of be uncomfortable conversations that you have to have with the team of like, okay, what what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and then also giving a space for people to be very candid and open and honest about, and not like point the finger and turn it into a blame game, so that they're willing to really like talk through what happened, and they don't feel like they're going to get, especially with contractors, they're not going to get like let go immediately just because, there's a defect in the process, and they were just following the process, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those I like to say it's us versus the problem with those kind of things. Something went wrong, let's go fix it. Ultimately, one person might have been solely responsible for that thing, going awry or screwing things up or what have you. And that's okay if you can collectively go, this error happens. Like unfortunately, it happened to be this person that made the mistake, but how do we prevent anybody else stepping into that trap as well? What do we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again down the line, and then using it as a learning experience? And I've done had a lot of conversations within the Salesforce ecosystem recently, and what makes people feel happy like in their jobs, and how that manifests itself. And one of the kind of key traits of teams that were mostly happy was the psychological safety in their teams. So by having those correction of error meetings and be able to constructively come up with, this is what went wrong, this is how we're going to fix it, and these are the actions, everybody knows where they stand now. So as long as those issues don't perpetuate further, or continue to happen, then you've kind of got an issue, right? And then things might need to be a little bit more serious. But if you have that culture where you can address issues, correct them, and move forward, then everybody's going to be happier, and be able to comfortably move forward, try new things. Because if something goes wrong when you try new things, you go, okay, what did we do wrong? How can we fix it? Make sure that we can carry on trying new things, and allows you to innovate faster. Amazon company that's been well renowned for innovation over the last 20-25 years or so, and doing things like that, I think, is one of those key proponents to maintaining that culture. So yeah, it's a really interesting take. I can noodle on all that stuff like all day. It really interests me. So
Yeah, and I was telling this story to a close friend of mine who works in the aerospace industry, and uh he said, and he's a program manager too. So I was like, do you guys do COEs, correction of errors? And he was like, no, what's that? Like similar to, I think you probably asked me previously, like, what's that? And he said, oh, but we have these things called anomaly reports. And he's like, there was one day like a satellite tipped over and it just like broke or, like, and again, maybe, how did that happen? Like what protocols were not in place to, but I thought that was really interesting where they call it an anomaly report, right? Which is even like a softer term than even like a correction of error. It's just like, hey, what anomaly happened in our process, in our protocols that allowed this thing that maybe cost a lot of money to happen? Uh, and so then how do we revisit? And I was like, that's actually a really nicer terminology and nicer way to phrase it, I think.
Yeah, it goes to show you again, like these like innate human things about ultimately working with people. Language means so much when you're dealing with anything. Anomaly reports. Yeah, it does sound nicer. It doesn't. Like error is just like, whoa, something bad's happened
Big
and we need to
red.
fix it. So
I just before this, I got an email from a user saying I can't. It's of an integrated system too, but I can't push a project into Shield. Our application's called Shield, and there was a screenshot, which you don't always get the screenshots. And there was a screenshot, and there was an error message, a red error box, and it said like this field is required. And my probably just didn't even look at the error. Right? Some people are so trained like I see a red error box on the screen, my brain shuts down, and I have to go ask the like development team. And I was like, enter that date and try again. But it's true. Like
yeah,
air is such a and flashing red and um yeah.
yeah,
Anyways,
plane's gonna fall out the sky, kind of
yeah.
style response. There's something that's interesting about what you just said as well. You're talking about dealing across different time zones, and the user said, "I could, these fields are all required, and I could just put bad data in them, but I don't want to do that." Why? Like that's a really powerful thing because like I'm sure we've all worked in organizations or been in situations where you were just like I need to do this task or something's not going to happen, I need to just bypass this thing, I will just fudge the data or just put in that box what I need just to clear the issue and it'll go away. Is there anything like inherent about like Amazon's culture or that team that you serve's culture that encourages them to report that issue to you and say, hey, we need a fix for this?
Uh I mean, yes, like probably it's like I've kind of been inside this culture for so long. Like I mean, I've been working on this project. I was a subcontractor before and then I came on full time or as a uh as an internal employee about 2.5 years ago. But so it's like I've been in this culture for so long, but I think like they always say, Jeff Bezos, you say like Amazon has a peculiar culture, and um, like there is a very strong culture of kind of people being able to escalate and uh, be vocal about and kind of be critical about processes. And that can go both ways, right? Like that's also something you kind of have to manage internally of like, okay, is it constructive or not? And try and we had a scrum master who left, and she was like an amazing scrum master, and she actually said it. She said, I think this team. She's like, this team is extremely vocal, um, like extremely vocal, especially during sprint retros and stuff. And that was kind of part of even including our contractors, like again creating psychological space safety for people to speak up and voice their opinions and critique and talk about what went wrong. And she said, but I do think like this team is very good about challenging the idea and not the person. Right. And so that was like, I was very happy to hear that, especially from the departing scrum master who is going off to do something else fun with her life. And but it was a really nice thing to hear from her to say, because it felt to me like we managed the team in a way that yes, people can be very vocal and critical of the process and the designs and the ideas and the protocols. But, you know, especially like at that, at that time when she was leaving, like we don't attack each other, it's not a personal attack. It's a challenge of the idea. And so I do see that. I think that's pretty widespread within Amazon. And again, depending on teams and stuff, it can go the other way where it's maybe not constructive, but, so I think that is up to each team, and team leaders to really manage that well, but allowing for that really open dialogue of, and there's a concept, like, especially my onboarding training, they talked about the concept of the andon cord. And you can look up, Jeff Bezos kind of coined that, of like anyone on the assembly line could pull the andon cord and stop the entire assembly line. So it's like anyone was empowered to do that if something went wrong, right? And of course, something like that would probably create a correction of error where, like, whoa, you stopped the whole assembly line. What's happening? Like, why did you do that? But and then there's kind of concept of soft pulls, but it is built in that, like, hey, I'm raising my hand, something is not right. Like, we need to fix this immediately. And so it's very much built into the culture. And I think that's very good, very good. But again, I think it has to be managed very well by leadership, of ensuring that it doesn't turn into deconstructive criticism, right? And you want it to be like constructive criticism and
Yeah, for sure.
helpful feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we talk about like constructive criticism is like not a new concept anywhere. I think it manifests itself differently in different organizations depending on, and it is person to person, case by case basis. So, there's not a I don't think that there's a well defined, or like a gold standard of what constructive criticism is until you've kind of experienced it. Like you're saying, it's looking at the idea and scrutinizing the idea rather than the person that said it, and that takes as much onus on everybody to scrutinize the idea as much as it does on the person that's proposed the idea to go, this isn't actually a criticism of me, it's like looking at the idea that's being proposed and picking holes in it. So I think it's a two-way street, right? You have to give constructive criticism well, and you have to receive it well. There's two sides to, you talked about double-edged swords quite a lot in this conversation, but it goes for that side of things too. Something else that's interesting that you mentioned there about your Scrum Master saying about the teams is that even the contractors are vocal, and you yourself coming in as a full-time employee after being contracted as well. What do you think is the key to successfully working with contractors and bringing contractors into your culture? Because that's something that a lot of the Salesforce ecosystem will be accustomed to, is working with contractors in some guys, whether it's a specific project or just the nature of helping them run their business as usual. If it's an admin heavy team, contracts and devs, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think it's like from a human perspective, right? You have to treat them like a human, first of all. um, yeah, just kind of, the nature of contract work, and, they come on projects and roll off projects, and it can very easily become this like hierarchical status, right? And so I think you need to try and avoid that as much as possible for like team dynamics. And so like our team members are team members, right? Regardless of, and at Amazon, we like, you literally have a color of your badges. Like if you're a contractor, your yellow badge or green badge. And so like we use these, and internal employees are blue badges. And so like we use these terms all the time: blue badge, yellow badge, like, just talking about the nature of, like, okay, how many, like resourcing and team resourcing and stuff. So we talk about that a lot, but again, that it's like, you have to be careful that those conversations don't start to really blur into, like this like hierarchy of, because then that's super, not productive and not helpful to the team. And so like inside of our core team, it's like, we're all team members, right? It doesn't really matter the color of the badge, so to speak. We're all team members. And, okay, I mean, internal people too, right? I mean, there's no reason why they may not leave us in 3 months, 6 months. And um, so you also have to have like kind of built into your culture and process of like onboarding and offboarding and being able to ramp people up and, do knowledge transfers so that everyone can learn and very quickly do what they need to be able to do, to get their job done successfully. Uh, and so I feel like that's, I don't know, high level. It's just like, yeah, treat humans like humans, and, doesn't matter the color of the badge, and empower them, right? Like, so it kind of comes into, well, internal people, right? We're more focused on our own like career, like, managers are focused on career growth for their employees and stuff. Whereas with contractors, you don't really need to, at least particularly from a management perspective, like you're not managing the career growth of your contractors, right? It's kind of just not in the job responsibilities. Like they're not mechanisms. It's like you give feedback to the the um the owner of the, or the lead of the contractor company, right? The manager of the contract company, or whoever it is, the point of contact that you have. You give feedback about like how maybe certain people are doing, or even how like all of their resources they're doing as a whole, and maybe you do that regularly. But it becomes less about the individual like career growth of contractors, but then like inside the team, again, you kind of have to throw that idea out the window. And like, if our team members are not set up to be successful, then we're not going to be successful, right? So like, even from like our QAs, right? Which is, again, QAs tend to be kind of, and we do have some QA engineers who like write automated test scripts, but they do a lot of manual testing. And so again, it's very monotonous, rote work, and they tend to, just take a lot of orders. But allowing, them to speak up and be vocal and critical of the process of like, where are we wasting time? Where's QA time being wasted, right? Like, how can we do this better? Like, should we be writing automated test scripts for these certain features versus like manual test scripts for these things? Um, and so, yeah, it's just kind of creating that space where, and then training them, right? Like helping them to understand and improve. And contractors also want to learn, and they want to come onto our team and learn and grow. And so, doing all those knowledge transfers and having our internal people work with them to train them up, and have knowledge sharing going back and forth and stuff. So I think that's kind of been our, I don't know that we're like the most successful, but that's worked very well for us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said. You could have just like mic dropped after the first few words. Treat them as humans, right? Like that's a success. That what I think, because I bang on about it all the time, is treat people as humans, and ultimately what we're doing, what we're building, what we're trying to improve is for the benefit of a human, and it's going to have a human impact somewhere down the line. Start by treating people as humans. And I think what I an anecdote I hear quite a lot, and I think is, it wouldn't be unfair to say, is a lot of people go, oh, we had like bad contractors in, or the contractors came in and created a mess, or things like that. You see it on LinkedIn all the time. So hopefully not saying anything too controversial. And it's like, okay, but what did you do as an organization to enable their success with your company as well? If you go back to like the idea of correction of errors, okay, that didn't go successfully. Was it truly the contractors, or was there something about the process? And scrutinize the whole thing. Don't just say the contractor ran that project or was involved in that project and therefore it failed.
Yeah.
There's no pointy finger blame game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're paying the contractor's bill, so like they they will do what you tell them to do, so if you're kind of blaming them for doing things wrong, it's that's that yeah, it's you're kind of really trying to shift the accountability, but like they're ultimately doing what you're telling them to do, so um
Yeah,
maybe you're not
and
giving
if you get
instructors, maybe you're giving them too much, like, and maybe that is because maybe you're not a technical person, you brought on technical contractors, and so you're trying to put a lot of trust in them to build the right thing, but you don't really know exactly what they're building. And so maybe that's the flaw. Again, it's not like okay, you don't have enough technical people internally to be able to, and that's our team actually was like all contractors historically. And there was some of that, right, where our product managers really had to trust what the contractors were building. And sometimes that didn't always go well and stuff. And so I think that's kind of one of the reasons I got brought on internally, is like we needed more technical people internally who could oversee what the contractors are doing. And that's part of one of our mechanisms, especially with the CI/CD and code reviews, is and that I've really tried to put in place with our team is first of all, like all releases have to be done by an internal a blue badge internal person, right? And then for all of our like larger projects, they need to be overseen by a blue badge developer, right? And so we rely on contractors as like solution architects sometimes. So even if it's like more junior internal people, right? We want to make sure that our internal people are still overseeing that and asking questions about, is this the right solution, and maybe pushing back. And then it's really built into our process where the blue badges are responsible for doing a lot of the code reviews. So it's like we want them involved from the requirements gathering, like reviewing the requirements, to, even though they're not doing the hands-on work, right? Contractors are doing the hands-on development and work when it comes time for the code review. And so we have that like gating mechanism of like if a contractor builds something, it can't keep moving through the process unless it's got eyes from an internal technical person, right? And so then that becomes like, well, are our internal people just pushing the button and moving it through because they're so overloaded with stuff themselves? And we have a pretty good trust relationship with our, contractors, that we don't think they're going to do anything nefarious or anything like that. But still, like, are even our internal people taking shortcuts? And then that's something we would have to revise too if we start to see like that behavior happen of like, okay, that means our internal people are overwhelmed and they're basically then just, they've got metrics to hit to like make sure things keep moving through the pipeline. So we need to like actually lower our blue badge capacity in each sprint, so they have more time to be doing that oversight work and doing those code reviews and making sure that what we release into production is high quality and is, meeting the business needs. So
yeah, absolutely. Conlan, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing some of your experiences. I really appreciate and really value your time. That's wonderful. As a closing question for you, what are you most excited for coming up on the Salesforce platform, or innovations, and why?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I've been trying to, like, both of these things have gotten caught up in security, but I've been trying to get us to leverage Data Cloud, and then also, so I'm going to Dreamforce and I'm going to take the Data Cloud bootcamp so I can really get more hands-on with it. We looked at it a lot last year. We never fully got it implemented. We had fairly simple use cases for it, but again, I don't know. Yeah, like security, right? It can be that double-edged sword where like things just kind of got caught up in security, and then it wasn't the highest priority need for us. And so I do want to go back and look more into like see what's happening with Data Cloud, and then part of that. And I was, do I want to do for that boot camp? Do I want to do Agentforce? Do I want to do Data Cloud? And then, according to the description, they said that there would be some Agentforce built into the Data Cloud training. So I was like, okay,
of course,
a win-win there, and learn a little about both. So yeah, I mean,
great.
Obviously, looking at those two fronts and see what we can do with those.
Perfect. Well, with nice clean data and high data integrity at Amazon already, then you should be in good stead for something like Data Cloud. So excited to hear about what you learn. Conlan, thanks so much for your time on the podcast. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Conlan, I will see you at Dreamforce. Hopefully the listeners see you at Dreamforce as well, and be able to have more great conversations like this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.